Once again, please give a warm ASEA welcome to founder Tyler Norton.
Are you guys ready to go home yet? Me neither. This is fun. I'm so grateful for the ASEA employees. I'm grateful that Chuck took time to recognize them. Would you just give them one more round of applause? Amazing. Right before I came out on the stage, Kim Marie slipped me this little piece of paper. I think you'd be interested to know this. ASEA pledged $10,000 yesterday for relief in Ecuador for the earthquake and asked you to match that. We've already received from you, the associate base, $31,000. Including in that an anonymous $10,000 donation from one associate. And I'm anxious to tell you it's still climbing, and we will, the note here says 20,000 of that will go to immediate relief for folks regarding the earthquake, but 21,000 of that will actually be the down payment on the vocational school that we'll be building. So thank you very much for that. I've entitled my remarks today, Double the Difference. And I think by the end of this, you'll know what I mean by that. But I'm anxious to share with you some insights about the difference that you're making. If you stop and consider all that's happened over the last few days, the notion of making a difference has been kind of the core theme. That ASEA is making a difference and having an impact around the world. Just the notion of Chuck coming out and sharing the mission and vision of the company, making it clear that being a force for good in the world and bettering people's lives is the reason we're here. I can honestly tell you that the reason my dad set out to do this was for that one purpose. It was to better people's lives and be a force for good in the world. He knew that the ASEA Redox supplement product was real and that people needed it. And the only objective was to get it out to them as quickly as possible. I can assure you that network marketing, which is something we've all fallen in love with, was not the first thought that he had. The first thought was get it in the hands of traditional approaches to this. But the second those approaches started to signal that it was going to limit bettering people's lives and being a force for good in the world, that was no longer an alternative. And I think you'll hear and sense today through this message how we can all double the difference that we're making with this product. And I'm grateful that my dad set out to do it that way. Pull out a piece of paper if you have one. Rip one out of your booklet if you have one next to you. And pull out a pen. I want you to draw this little graph. The y-axis is your life experience. Now, when I say experience, I don't mean the different jobs you've had. I'm talking about the composite life index. In economics, they call this utility, satisfaction, happiness, engagement, good time, positive things that are happening in your life. Put on the x-axis time, and as quickly as you can, starting at the earliest memory to today, I want you to draw the curve of your life. Draw it. Where going up the y-axis means I was having an improved or a better life experience. Coming down the y-axis is something that's a downward trend. Sketch it out real quick. I want you to stare at it for a second. I'm fascinated by the notion of life experiences. I'm fascinated on what trigger points might cause life to get better and what challenges, trials, setbacks might cause us to go into a time where our overall life experience seems to be in decline. I sat and reflected on this concept for a long time prior to sharing this message today. And I sketched out my own line. So I started from my earliest memory. And I said, you know, my life, grateful to my parents and my siblings who are here today, has really been a very positive one. I feel very blessed and favored. Along the way, I've had some setbacks, as you can see up here, different intervals of time where in general I would say that was a tough year, or there were some things that were challenges or setbacks. And you can see one significant one in the center there. I'll talk about that in just a minute. On your curve right now, I want you to take your pens and I want you to put a dot on your line where significant things happened. Just draw dots or two, one or two dots on it. Something significant. Could go back to your childhood era, could be something that's happened fairly recently to you here. Now, in my case, if I were to throw these dots on this, I'm fascinated by the moments that precede significant uplift. If I was looking at this graph, having studied economics, the professor would force me to say, what caused this, if you can see my pointer, this little jump? That's an interesting jump. What caused that significant lift in your life? Wow, what about that one? And as I drop these data points on this graph of my life, and you do the same to yours, pick those points on it where something significant occurred that caused a change. Now, some of you know that Chuck Funky and I worked for the better part of almost 20 years in the financial services industry. We had every SEC and FINRA license possible, and we dealt with investments and risk management products. And there was a term that was often used when you would talk about the investment in a given company. That term is what you refer to as an inflection point. Inflection points are events that result in a significant change in the progress of a company. And I'm going to borrow this from the investment community and say, you have inflection points in your life. These are turning points. These are moments when something significant occurs and causes a change. It causes an uplift. Now, clearly, I could have put inflection points, if you can see my pointer, on some of these downward moments, but I've chosen, probably wise to do so, to talk about the positive inflection points, the moments when the turning points were something really significant. I pondered this for a long time. I went back to my earliest memory, and in this particular instance, I chose not necessarily to simply reflect on my core nuclear family, but sometimes just outside forces and the difference they made. The first window is this little yellow window at the bottom of the screen. Can you see that small yellow box? That point in time, believe it or not, was third grade. I'm the little guy right here next to the teacher, and for some reason I wasn't smiling very much. And my teacher's name was Jane Knapp. My mom would drop me off at school a little bit early some days, and for whatever reason, I had an opportunity to sit before school started with Miss Jane Knapp. Jane Knapp loved the Boston Red Sox. I loved the New York Yankees, so we immediately had a problem with each other. She loved Carl Yastrzemski, and I loved Reggie Jackson. So we would argue and arm wrestle over Yankees and Red Sox baseball. Some mornings, one of the mothers of another student in my class would come to the class and bring donuts, and I would sit on a little tiny chair with Miss Knapp and this mother, and I would have a donut. And Miss Knapp started to give me a sense of confidence and identity that I genuinely really appreciated. Now, to be honest, you don't start looking back on these inflection points until many years later, but you remember and say, she would pull me aside after a report and tell me I did a really good job. She would look at me and say, you've got potential. I remember doing a single report where I didn't really draw attention to some of the detail, and she did. This is back in the 78, 79 when video recording was just coming out, and she recorded us giving reports and made us stand up in front and then watch ourselves. Probably in some ways one of the first kind of public addresses I had given. I was considering Miss Knapp, and I started to think, you know what? I wonder if she's still alive. Several times in the last 10 years, I've tried to find her, and I have not had any success. But about 10 days ago, I felt impressed to call the school in Connecticut, where I went to school. A woman answered the phone, and I said, listen, this is kind of a strange call. I went to your school almost 40 years ago, and I had a teacher that had a very significant impact on me, and I have no idea where she is. I'm going to be speaking in about 10 days to a very large group of people, and I would like to honor her. I'd like to talk to her if I could. And she said very quickly, well, I've never heard the name. And then someone in the back had heard her talking and said, tell them to call this other school in town, a school name I had never heard. So I hung up the phone and I called the other school. I got through to the secretary of the principal, who I guess had been a tenured principal for many decades in that community, and she was not available. I said, may I send her an email address or an email note? She says, of course. So I shot an email over. I crossed my fingers. I didn't hear anything for an hour, 24 hours. And then 2 days later, I got an email back that said, her name is Jane Amante, and she lives in Jupiter, Florida. Now, just so you know, she's not here today. That would have been pretty special. I didn't feel it was fair to invite her to come, but I started searching for a Jane Amante in Jupiter, Florida, and I found a phone number. And the Saturday before Mother's Day, I called and got through to Jane Knapp. After 38 years, maybe? Thanks. I said, Miss Knapp, this is Tyler Norton. I was a third grader in Tashua Elementary School almost 40 years ago. You don't likely remember me. And she said, oh, I remember you. And I said, I didn't know if I really believed it, but I thought it was kind. And I mentioned some other kids that were in my class, and Mickey Tomey was one. My mom knew that I had a good friend named Mickey Tomey, and Mickey's right in the middle. And she said, oh, yeah, I remember that class. I said, Miss Knapp, I'm speaking to a large group of people in Orlando in a few days, and I just wanted you to know you made a massive difference in my life. And she paused for a minute, and she all but said this to me. She said, you know, I taught for 35 years. I retired. I wondered if I should retire. It felt like the right thing to do. And she said, aside from a few people that have come to talk to me over the years after they left my class, I don't know that anyone's really called me and thanked me. And she said, you just made my Mother's Day. I was grateful to talk to her. She's, if I'm not mistaken, in her late 70s. And I thought a lot about it. I said, Miss Knapp, you've probably helped thousands, right? And she said, definitely over 1,000 students over the years. I hung up the phone and I thought, can you imagine spending 35 years teaching kids and never hearing back from one of them? And I just want to challenge you. When you write these little lines, and when one of those inflection points is somebody that made a difference, will you just take the challenge from me to reach out this week, preferably in the next 24 hours, and say, you know, I was just drawing the curve of my life, and it occurred to me that my life was very different because of you. Would you do that and thank somebody for the impact they've had on your life? Miss Knapp had an impact on mine. This is an interesting interval of time for me, a big jump. I made a decision after my first year in college that I would serve a church mission for 2 years. I was assigned to Central America, to the country of Guatemala, and I spent 2 years with the beautiful people of that country. Much of the time I spent there was with the Indians in the highlands of Guatemala. I learned to speak Spanish, which I love. I also learned an Indian dialect, or some of an Indian dialect, called Quiche. And I lived on the banks of a lake called Lake Atitlan, one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. It actually has 2 symmetrical volcanoes that come right out of the lake. And every morning I would wake up to this little girl outside my door. Her name was Yarut. And Yarut would come to my door because we left always between 9:30 and 10 with a basket on her head and one in her hand. And she would come to me and say, do you want to buy some peanuts? And they were, a mania is what she would say. And every day she was there, she would run over, and I would always have a few coins in my pocket, and I would always buy a little bag of peanuts. Now, what happened during this window of time where I worked with these beautiful people? A certain set of beliefs took shape in my life, a certain set of empathies and concerns for other people. awareness lifted. I will be honest and tell you, as the youngest of four and my dad's success, I grew up with the benefits of affluence. My father will fill in the blanks and mock me to no end about the way my lifestyle was about this time. But then I went and lived in places that, frankly, you probably wouldn't even park your car. And I did for 2 years plus. And I spent time with these beautiful people, and for me, the children were always something special to my heart. Years later, I went back to Guatemala and I saw Yarut. I was walking down the street. I called her Chulita. Anyone know what Chulita means? Little cute one. Chulita. So when I would come, she would come out in the morning, I would say, Chulita. And she would say, buy some peanuts for me. And I would say, hola, Chulita. But look at that face. Look how gorgeous. And she had a twin sister, Yanin. So it was Yarut and Yanin. And they lived right at the base of that volcano. Years later, I was in this little town, no longer as a service missionary, walking down the street, just in street clothes, and I saw two twin girls, much older. And I couldn't understand what they were saying in their dialect, and one of them said, Chulita. And I said, Yarut. And they both ran over and gave me a big hug. Amazing experience. So when you see an interval like that and you say, that changed my whole outlook on life, that changed the way I felt about myself and what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I came home, I had some struggles that were personal. I tried to figure out kind of where I was. I got off center, to be honest with you. And then I met my glorious wife. And right there at that little interval where you see this huge spike of development and growth and happiness was Allison. That's our wedding day in 1994. Every good thing and the whole slope of the rest of that curve of my life can go back to that inflection point. I've learned more from her and been inspired more by her than anyone else on this planet. She is quiet. She requires and desires no attention be placed upon herself. She is loyal. She's dedicated. She's the most committed mother you could possibly imagine. And she wants really no attention for it. Truly a huge inflection point in my life. Now, what about the next section? Well, you might imagine this little interval here was the joy of having children. I remember having my first son, Jacob. Don't look too hard. He's crying his brains out in that picture, I remember. I couldn't really pacify him. I've always liked this picture of his hand in mine. Excuse me. He's since grown up and left the house, which is a heartbreaker. But boy, for me, when I had my first son, I told people that that for me is when the Wizard of Oz, when it went from black and white to color. Life just seemed brighter. It seemed happier. I remember getting excited as I got closer to the house when I was coming home from work, because I got to play with him. And that joy has happened for me 6 times over with all of my children. Massive inflection point. This was more of a professional window of time. I met an individual who took a huge chance on me at age 28. His name was Mark Nervolonsky. Some of you have met him. Mark promoted me to become a national director of a very large financial services company. He gave me an opportunity long before I should have had it. And to be honest, had he not given me this opportunity, there would not be an ASEA. I promise you that, because I was literally promoted because of this job into the next job where I met the individual that introduced Dad and I to this technology. You stop and think about the influence and impact if just one of these things doesn't happen. Now, maybe it would have happened another way, right? Maybe it would have found a way. But as it stands, I can literally trace it back and say, if not for this gentleman promoting me and giving me a shot at a very young age, I was in a job probably 20 years before my time to be there, and he believed in me and made a huge difference. Shortly thereafter, I met this guy on the right. Who's that? That's Carlos Frederick Funke II. That picture is over 11 years old. Chuck and I worked together as officers of a financial services company and have built a meaningful, long-standing relationship during that window of time. Now think about it. What happens if I don't meet or know Chuck? Or meet or know Mark Nervolonsky? You might imagine this next window what it is. It's a real joyful, amazing uptick that started with this product. As I go back and reverse engineer how things happen, the introduction of that technology to my dad occurred under the direction, really, of the company and opportunities we had before. I've been, I don't know how many countries, I should have counted before speaking to you, but I've been all over the world. I've spoken in the Parliament building in Romania. I've traveled with my siblings and my parents to Italy, to Venice, to Norway, all over the world. I've been to Australia just this year and walked around with kangaroos. My dad and I have gone and spent time together that likely never would have happened had ASEA not come into this world. And so it wasn't hard for me, as I started to plot the curve there, to say this has been a remarkable upward experience post-inflection point. My family's grown older, and they're starting to leave, which is an interesting experience. But the joy of having children in this interval and being able to watch them grow up has been an amazing period of time in my life. Now, what you see here is really a graphic of these inflection points. And you have your own curve, don't you? You can go back and trace people and opportunities, and yes, even products, that all of a sudden everything changed. I watched last night, I watched Trish, I watched Denny, I watched all of our leadership get recognized. I watched Rosemary. I know something of your life curve. And you know what's amazing to me about these life curves? They're not one-dimensional. They actually intersect with other people. Ricardo meets Valentina in a restaurant, correct? And now Valentina is on the stage being recognized as a top enroller. Valentina is building relationships around the world. What happens if Ricardo and Valentina miss each other's life curve? How does it affect the curve for the rest of their individual lives? I like to think of this as this notion of HAMAD. HAMAD meaning have an impact, as we introduced yesterday, and make a difference. Do you realize that you can be the inflection point in other people's lives? I've set out my whole life and my whole career to try to be a meaningful inflection point in other people's lives. I think I've succeeded in some cases. I think I've failed in others. I take very seriously the responsibility to even be on this stage speaking to you. This is not about me. I hope in some way, in some incredibly unique and distinct and singular way for you, that you'll reflect internally on this notion of how to be an inflection point in someone else's life. I know the Jane Knapps, what they did for me. And the fact is, if a line is nothing more than a whole bunch of dots, these inflection points can happen when you smile at someone out front here as you're walking out. Or when you walk by someone and say, "I love your dress," which I heard a lot last night. Or "You look really great." Inflection points don't have to be big. You remember my quote yesterday, giving encouragement, imparting sympathy, showing interest in another, banishing fear, awakening hope. These are small, small inflection point moments that, like Miss Knapp, she may never ever quantify or do the math on how it might have changed the curve in someone else's life. I got a kick out of last night's presentation because I had this slide built before he even came to the stage. He kept asking this question, what if? What if AC/DC sang a Dan Fogelberg song, right? But I started asking this question several weeks ago. In fact, I've asked it my whole life long. What if I just took one of these inflection points, the meeting and marrying of my wife, and just like the movie Back to the Future, it just starts to fade off? What if it didn't happen? Then you start asking yourself, what might the curve have actually looked like? I happen to believe that the curve, no matter how you say it, knowing that this is pure conjecture, would have been less than. It just would not have been as impactful. And so we have this notion of knowing the difference, right? We can see this, and that becomes this concept of the difference. We understand this notion of difference, don't we? We say it all the time. We understand that things like this mean that you did something to the curve of my life. You did something to me. And I don't know that it's the same. I think it's better. If I go back to my friend Mark, in the year 2000, he gave me a journal. He wrote this in the journal. Dear Tyler, a lot of things happen in our lives for reasons unknown. Some things happen and make you feel as though they are put together by some incredible power in the universe. We won't probably change the world, but people like you will always make a difference. I'm proud to be your friend, Mark Naravolansky. That was in a journal he gave to me in 2000. My dad opened up the conference by sharing the lyrics of the song that we dedicated to him last year. As I worked with the musicians and a friend that co-produced that song with me, I made it very clear that the first line of the song would be, one life can make a difference. That one life could be that simple little inflection point that would change the curve in another person's life. And the second line was, one life can change the world. I truly and fundamentally believe that. And I will submit to you that you have no idea how many trees are in each seed. Right? I know I can count how many seeds are in an apple, but I cannot count how many trees are in a seed, because it goes on forever. That's who you are. That's what you are. What about this? You ever had anyone say this to you? You have made a huge difference in my life. If there's something I wish people would say to me, it's that. That's the only thing that matters to me, is that when somebody intersects with me, they come away saying, that guy made a difference in my life. Can you imagine if we set out every day to live in such a way where this was the goal? Just to be able to say, this person made a difference in my life. Here's another phrase, that has made all the difference, right? We say this often too. Ah, man, that's made all the difference. We use these terms freely, but sometimes I don't think we stop and reflect and ponder on them enough. Chuck introduced our mission to better people's lives and to be a force for good in the world, and then introduced the vision, which expanded on the original vision statement my dad had, which was to achieve worldwide distribution of ASEA. It's now taken on a different tone. It's not only to do that, but it's to become the recognized leader in cellular health, as well as redox-based technologies, but to also achieve worldwide distribution of not just our products, but life-changing products, life-changing financial opportunity, and life-changing culture. If you look at the vision more closely, and I've underlined the word life-changing here, when Chuck and I had an extended lunch one afternoon, and we were arm wrestling on this statement back and forth. We were in a restaurant, there was no one else around, and frankly, we landed on the mission statement in that restaurant. Said, that's it. It's just to better people's lives and be a force for good. That's it. That's why we exist. Do I need to restate the financial imperatives of the company? It's obvious, right? We have to be profitable to do that. But really, we're looking to make a difference in people's lives. Now, last night, I watched people come up here and take the stage. And I thought that was a beautiful evening, by the way. Marilee deserves a lot of credit for putting that together. But I know something of the life curves of the people that took this stage. I know Chuck and Tammy. I know where they were. I don't know all the details. I don't need to know all the details, but I know it was not a great place. I've heard you say, Tammy, that you were taking inbound calls. You were actually taking phones off hooks to not take inbound calls from people looking for payments for things. Can you imagine the life-changing implications financially that have come? And all of these inflection points in life, I remember Cindy and Bo on this stage or one like it, Cindy saying, I want my husband to stop driving a canyon pass that is super dangerous for work. And I remember when you, Bo, stood up here and said, I'm done with work. It's all in, and we're playing. And when you guys take the stage, something so special goes through my heart. Because this is not a game for me when you underline the word life-changing. Did you notice that there's a triangle here? Take a look at this. Tell me, have you seen this before? Clearly it's a triangle. But what other symbol does this represent? Anyone know? It's the delta. It's the fourth letter in the Greek alphabet. In math or physics, anyone know what that means? I think I heard David say it. It means delta actually equals two things. It means the difference, and it means the change. If I'm trying to determine the elasticity of a product, it's the percent change in price relative to the percent change in demand. And you would draw that with a delta symbol, P, and a delta symbol in demand. We see symbols like this all the time, but for me, they start to take on new meaning when I think about the 3 points of the triangle that Chuck introduced: life-changing product, life-changing financial and business opportunity, and life-changing culture. Think of it this way. If I take this delta symbol and I put at the top of it the product sets that we have, is there any question in this room of the life-changing impact and potential, first of the redox subproduct that we have? I've had people at this event ask to take a picture and stop me in the hall and say, thank you for giving my life back. I had one lovely woman say to me, thank you for giving me my husband back. Does that sound life-changing to you? What about the Renew 28 product that was introduced? Does it have life-changing potential? Have you heard life-changing stories? Now here's an interesting question. What about a skincare line? Does that move off of life-changing into something else? The answer is no. And I'm going to prove it to you. Here's a picture of my son I'm going to show you, who's had pretty bad acne, started growing his hair out and wearing hats down low so that he wouldn't be seen what was underneath. I mentioned yesterday that I took him with me to Mexico, excuse me, and started to see a certain smile come out that I've been looking for a long time. My wife and I were kind of like, he's in there somewhere. I just need him to come out. And Kurt Richards gave me this new skincare line. And I have to be forthright. I'm not overstating this. He was using other things to try to help. But he started using the line. And just 3 weeks ago, he went to prom. I want to show you the smile I was looking for. That's it. And you can see just a little bit of the remnants by his hairline, but you know what? He was prepared to go get his hair cut. And it was interesting. I sent this picture to my mom, and she replied back in a text and said, I haven't seen Joe look that good in a very long time. This is a 17-year-old boy. Now, here's the story. Don't separate how someone looks from how they feel. You all worried yesterday about wearing your nicest dress or having your nicest earrings on or having any number of things, particularly those of you that knew you were going to be on the stage. Can how someone looks affect how they feel about themselves? That's a story right there, because he's smiling. He's partly smiling because he's with a very pretty young girl, right? I was very aware of that. I was like, ease up there, Junior. Don't smile so much. But to be honest with you, and I think my brothers and sister and my mom and dad who know Joe very well can say, I sent it out to you and you came back and said, almost like, there's Joe. There's my son. And you know what? He moseys into my bathroom every morning and starts, there's no like, what do you call that? The cemetery of all the skincare products? No, he's the graveyard. He's right on the front lines looking for the Renew Advanced products. He's a 17-year-old boy. Please don't make the mistake of thinking that a cosmetic product is cosmetic. It is not. It's how people feel about themselves. I've literally killed myself for the last 6 years on this life-changing concept. Can we teach truths and principles and try to reach for ideals? Can we just please build a company that's not going to over-promote the economics only, that's going to teach how to treat another person, how to view your own personal progress, when to put a mirror up in front of your face and actually audit yourself, actually the notion of recognizing that I am because we are, or that the most important person is right in front of you and the most important thing to do is to serve the one right in front of you right now? See, that's all this is for me. It's, can we please start teaching people to leave the baggage of what they used to feel about themselves behind and start saying, I'm going, baby. I'm going right there, right? Can we do that? And can this be an environment where not only I say this and it's just pleasantries, but we actually try to live it, and then give each other room to make mistakes, give each other room and forgive each other for the moment when you say, yeah, I wasn't my best self that day? Wouldn't it be amazing if we could create a fundamental set of values that's what we're trying to do? And yeah, when the corporate side of the business makes a decision that ticks you off in the field, we're like, it's cool, we're going to talk about it. And we create the conditions and environment where we have dialogue that's meaningful and productive, because that's all this means, by the way. These aren't just graphic images. It's actually like asking yourself, who am I? What do I believe? How do I treat other people? That's all this is. And for me, what I have been teaching from this stage, right, from the very get-go, has been nothing more than a desire to just say, hey, look inward at yourself and try to find your best self and bring it here. And leave all the artifacts of prior lives and prior experiences, just leave them. And come here and say, let's start again. Let's be our best self. Let's forgive each other. Let's show gratitude for the good things and not necessarily constantly be calling out where we all are frail. That's what this means. Is this potentially life-changing? Yeah. These concepts are life-changing. Thank you. The possibility exists that today hell is freezing over, because I aim to spend the balance of my discussion talking about life-changing financial outcomes in this company. I'm actually going to center my remarks on this notion of I can be changed financially. Now, Jerry and Marsha always joke with me. I always say, man, you are looking good, my brother. And Marsha, you are looking good. And what do you always say to me, Jerry? It's the money. And I go, Jerry, man, it's not the money. You look money, but it is not just the money. We have this funny dialogue. Last night, I even said it to you when I gave you a hug. But here's an interesting concept. If a skincare product can make you look better and feel better, what is the liberation that occurs when you finally start to reach your economic potential? What is the sense of empowerment and life-changing reality that comes when you start to go, yeah, I can do this? Now, to be fair with you guys, I have tried from the very beginning of this company to say that our motivations and our commitments should not exceed that of our commitment to principles. You'll recall, if you've never seen this before, this is called EPC, and this just simply says that if you want to be successful in life, manage your motivations so that they're not always centered on money and self, but they're centered on principles. If you can keep E under P, you're in good shape. If you allow E to climb and you stop paying attention to principles, you put yourself at risk, because long-term, honesty, civility, kindness, humility, all those wonderful principles are enduring, and money's not. Now, I've been saying this literally, my dad will tell you, from the first day we whiteboarded for a handful of people. We've been teaching this, and I'm not leaving this by any stretch. If you add the notion of capacity, this notion says what? It says keep E, let me go back one, keep E under P and drive up your capacity. Learn, grow, develop, become, push yourself, audit yourself. Where can I improve? And if you'll live this little formula, I'm convinced you'll have enduring success. Now, here's the danger zone. This is a dangerous profile. This is someone who places ego and economics well above their commitment to principles, but is skilled and talented and capable. These are dangerous folks. And so I'm saying, don't go there. Don't let yourself go to this place. Now, if that's the case, then I've been saying for 6, 7 years, 8 years from this stage, and before that in another environment, keep E under P, drive up your C, and have a target score where you've got a healthy spread between 5 and 8. Well, here's a question. Can E be a P? Can economics and the impact and influence they can have on a life be a principle, be a truth, be a positive, enduring, impactful thing? Thank you. Now, this is a simple question, right? But the truth is, I have avoided this for the better part of 5 years. Do you know why? Because water will find the path of least resistance as it rolls down a hill. And I believe that actually placing ego and economic motivations is like the path of least resistance. You have to bank the water. You have to channel water. And I believe you have to channel economic motivations to make sure they don't get out of whack. Have you seen this before in the world around us, where people with great wealth lose their principle sets and start to disintegrate right before our eyes? Have you seen that? I can think of several meaningful examples that are very public. But you know what's interesting? I shot out an email to several of you and said, why don't you shoot me your favorite stories? Shoot me the messages that signal and indicate that this life-changing product set, life-changing culture, is also equaled by life-changing financial outcomes. And you know what? I have felt the ethos of ASEA as strongly and perhaps even the most strongly I've ever felt it, reading these stories coming into my inbox. And I hesitated to share some of them because it's tricky. You're like my kids. If one kid gets to go out with dad on a special date, I come home and the next one goes, well, when's my time to go out with dad, right? And I find that if I highlight one story here, then somebody else goes, well, why isn't he talking about my story, right? So do I have your permission to definitely tell some stories and leave others out? Thank you. First, I'd like to thank every person that sent me their story, because I read every one. I put them in a spreadsheet and I audited and read every one. And there was a spirit, that's how I'm gonna call it, that came into my heart, and a sense of conviction, like believe, belong, become, that said, get out of my way. I'm standing up and I'm raising this flag. You can make money here. And you will see it will make a huge difference. It is an inflection point, and it's real. Okay, first story, you ready? This is my friend Colleen. My ASEA business gave me the opportunity to dedicate my time to give the last year of my father's life the love and quality of care he deserved. There is no price that you can put on that. It was a true privilege to be able to provide that for him. When Pepper Black came up to the stage and talked about all the turmoil in her life and said, my checks kept coming in. Every Friday, I had something coming in. That was the one fundamental stable thing in her life in a time when everything else was shaking. In the case of Colleen, she's told me this several times, how would I have possibly been able to take care of my dad that last year and still financially exist? There's virtually no other way. Just in the United States alone, there's 22.4 million households that are providing care to an elderly family member, and it's climbing. Those people providing care to elderly family members do not want to dismiss or abdicate that responsibility. They want to do it. But how many of them can actually do it financially? So here's my question. In her case, did the ASEA business opportunity make a difference, a delta? You with me? All right, this next one is Hugo and Hilda from Mexico. I thought about translating this into English, but I wanted to leave it in Spanish because there's plenty of people in this room that can read this and understand it, and I'm going to try my best to tell you what this says. I'm not the best at translating, but I can get by. This says that our history of success has to do with the fact that we left everything behind for ASEA. I'm referring to the fact that we left an accounting firm that my husband had. And in her case, a 23-year job working for the government, as well as a teacher at a university. She says, as we say, we burnt the boats. And we burnt the boats behind us so that we could take ASEA to all of Mexico, and we left our comfort zone. Now, she says, we did that to generate testimonies of health, impactful testimonies of health improvement. And thank God, we can see that people are living better. They're having better health. And this has no price when you help others in this regard. She said also, and moreover, this has brought with it income, a financial stability that has changed our lives. Remember my delta symbol? It has changed our lives. We now enjoy with our children, We now enjoy with our children their successes, time with them. We can guide them through their setbacks. And we have arrived and achieved to be that family that we've always wanted to be. We have reached our goals. One of the great goals we had was the home of our dreams. And we have learned that as we grow personally, that we get better in health and help others in health and economy, that the great courage that comes to a united family is one of the great compensatory outcomes of this. What an amazing story, right? She sent me a picture of their home they used to live in. And then she sent me this picture, the home of their dreams. Gracias, Hugo y Hilda, por su historia. Did it make a difference in their case? Can I keep going? Yes. Are you good? Yes. Here's good friends, Irv and Marion Struble, Diamond execs with the company. Marion said, Tyler, we replaced a 30-year retirement in 2 years, and it was residual income. But even more importantly, we've been able to replace a refrigerator without going into debt, help my son go through the financial difficulties of a divorce, including broken vehicles and things for the children. We've helped my other son move when he lost his job and had to relocate, help them pay for their rent to get them started in their new home. We also enjoy travel we would never have been able to do because we were on the Work Forever plan. Awesome story. And did it make a difference? Yes. From Europe, here's Wanda and Willy, good friends, diamond executives. This is a powerful story. These are millennials, by the way, and I want to talk about millennials with you for a second. They said at a very young age, we chose to leave our country and work abroad. It was hard, but we had to make it get ahead financially. We left family and friends, and it was very, very hard when we could see them only once a year. We always wanted to go back to Hungary for good, but we couldn't because, unfortunately, we couldn't secure the kind of financial stability we wanted. We worked endless hours in Scotland and never had any time for one another. And then we met ASEA. ASEA made our wish of 7 years come true. Go home for good, live with our family and friends. We started to enjoy the financial benefits of sharing the product and the opportunity with others, and we had more time for each other. This make a difference in their lives? Wanda and Willy sit squarely in the notion of millennials. When were millennials born, by the way? Anyone know? There's a little bit of arm wrestling on this. No, older than that. Millennials were born in the mid-'80s, right? Early to mid-'80s, all the way up to 2000. Last night, Jose Manuel, I don't know where he is the youngest diamond in this company. There's Jose. Super Jose Manuel Hernandez Alvarez, right? Here's a guy who stood up excited and said, I'm doing this, man. He is a millennial. Did you know that in just 4 years, 86 million millennials will be working in the workforce just in the United States alone? Over 40% of the workforce will be Jose Manuel or Wanda and Willy. And they've researched what these people stand for. Now, the Gen Xers who come before them, people like me and Chuck and others, we despise the millennial attitudes because they want cake and they want to eat it too, right? They want it all. These are some of the things that they say. 64% of them make it a priority to work in an environment where they make the world a better place. They want to work somewhere where it makes it a better place. Of the 86 million, 72% want to be their own boss. Are you hearing me? 72% of the millennials say, I want to be my own boss. And 74% of them say, I want a flexible schedule. 88% of them say they want work-life integration. Now, what's the difference between work-life balance and work-life integration? You want to know what the answer is? Network marketing. When I see Denny in Norway with her son working, that's called work-life integration. Right? When you guys are traveling here and spending time with family at the same time, your work life becomes integrated. It's one and the same. Work-life balance says, I check out at 5 p.m., I pick the kids up at daycare, and then I've got a little bit of time with them. In this environment, work-life integration says, I do it all together. I'm on the phone on my way to pick them up. I can spend time with them. This is what these people want. Now, I've heard people say, oh, ASEA's got an average age that's a little bit higher. I'm going to tell you right now, you ought to be looking for millennials like Wanda and Willy because they want this world. They want work-life integration. They want to be their own boss. They want a flexible schedule, and there's 86 million just in this country in the next 4 years coming into the game. If you believe that you have the inflection point, if you believe you have the difference and the delta to make, then start ringing the bell to millennials. Because they'll outpace you. They want to run. Now, there's an argument that says, well, these people don't understand real life. Well, I'm telling you right now, network marketing is like the most insanely surreal life I've ever seen. There are people in this room that are making money when they're going through hardship and trial and the checks are still coming. Is that real life? Most of the world doesn't think that's real life. That's real life here. That can happen here. So please understand that the ASEA business opportunity can make a difference to folks in that age range. Here's my friend, Peg Coates. Nobody gives a better hug than Peg Coates. When Peg leans in to give me a hug, I just feel like I'm hugging like a divine being. And she always gives me just a little bit of, And she hugs me. She says, that feels great. And I go, Peg, you are a gem. Look at this. She sent this over. After working just 4 years in ASEA, I matched my pension that I earned after teaching for 36 years, right? And I gained security and income to pay for graduate school and my travel. Pensions are going away, folks. Do you understand what I'm talking about? I worked in the financial industry. Let me tell you what these are. Defined benefit pensions say for every year of service, I'm going to times it by some formula, and I'm going to tell you at a given chosen time of retirement, typically after age 65, you get this much every month. And you can choose to spread it out till your life expectancy, or you can have a survivorship benefit if you die to your spouse. 44% of companies in America had these pensions in place in 1974. And do you know how many there are now? Less than 17%, and it's on a steady decline. Companies are not putting pensions in play for people anymore. You can't just go work 30 years for one group. It's not going to happen. Your responsibility for retirement sits squarely on your shoulders. And I have researched Australia, Mexico, and the EU. It's the same. Different social insurances, but the punchline is your retirement is your job. Now, how do you do this? In just a few years, replace this. Did it make a difference? You bet it did. And you know what? This was a theme I heard all throughout the letters sent to me. Replaced a 30-year retirement. I'm a pensioner, now earning $8,000 a month in addition to my pension. I replaced an entire lost retirement and more in 2.5 years with an ASEA income. Through ASEA at the age of 60, I rebuilt my entire retirement nest egg to a 6-figure income in 12 months. This is real stuff. I'm not cooking this up. These are real messages from real people, real lives. I ask you again, did the ASEA business opportunity make a difference? Okay, I have 2 more stories. Are you good? I love these stories. Patty and Jim. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties, stand by. Oh, sorry, who? Greg, sorry. Thank you for clarifying. Sorry, Patty. Almost 14 years ago, we moved to a new town with grand hopes of raising our family in a great environment, surrounded by beauty and good influencers. We built a beautiful home in the most amazing location. Listen to this next line. The day they cashed our first mortgage payment, my husband lost his job. At that time, my husband decided to do what he had dreamed and went into business for himself. Not the best time economically, and as time went on, less money came in, our debt began to grow. And we had always had the hope that things would get better. But they didn't. I couldn't part with the home. Think about that, taking your kids out of schools and all the different things you do. And so I did what most people do, and I found another job. And listen to this. A typical day for me was wake up at 3:20 a.m. and work at Home Depot till 8 a.m. My second job was with the school district, where I could at least see one of my 3 boys sometime throughout the day. I'd get done there at 1 p.m., go home and nap religiously. You don't see those 2 words often together. Looking for sleep. Until 2:50, I'd go back to school, I would help out there, and then my, quote, mom job would kick in. I'd go to ball games, music lessons, help with homework and dinner, and try to be in bed by 9 p.m., only to start it all over again at 3 a.m. It was near this time we were introduced to network marketing. We did our research, we felt the support of a wonderful team, and we saw some success. But during this time, we were introduced to ASEA 6 times, and we finally made the move. How has it impacted us financially? Immediately, we began to make some money. That's a good thing, a plus. And after 3.5 years, we have stayed steady at making $500 to $1,500 a month. Thankfully, I no longer work at Home Depot. I've kept my school job to supply needed benefits, but we're not ASEA associates full-time, but definitely part-time. ASEA pays me as much, if not more, than my, quote, job. And I'm sorry if I got Patty, your husband's name, wrong. You said it's Greg? Patty and Greg. Sorry, guys. Did the ASEA business opportunity make a difference for them? You bet it did. Now, this last one about broke my heart, and I'm going to share this one as my last story with you. And I think of this as the piggy bank story. And this is good friend Lorene from Australia, Bavart. Listen to this. And Lorene, thank you for being so transparent. This is amazing. It's quite confronting and debilitating when in moments of despair, you carry out behaviors that you would not dream of doing. Can anyone relate to that? Have you ever questioned why people do or act the way they do? Well, I do. And I'm one of, quote, those. I am one who has raided my own 2 daughters' piggy bank savings to put enough petrol in my car. Embarrassing, deflating, shameful, not once, but many times, and even not 12 months ago. Being a single mom for 6 years, it's hard. It's had its challenges. And looking in from the outside, no one would really know. You would think things were good and rosy. No one would know the real reasons, the reasons why I couldn't be at the function or be at the dinner or entertain people at my own house. I didn't even have the money to hire a babysitter. I became isolated. I was stressed. I was depressed. And I'm sure they're the reasons that I lost friendships. People couldn't understand. They didn't know. I never told them. How could I? I was Wonder Woman, right? 17 months later, my world has turned around. I couldn't be happier. Old friendships reignited, adventures with my girls. I've even now booked a holiday in the hot, warm weather of Northern Australia during my hometown winter. Bills are paid on time. Oh, and lastly, and most significant, I visit those piggy banks every day, filling them up. I thank my buddy Daniel Doyle for sharing ASEA with me, and I thank you, ASEA. This is my cause. This will be my legacy. Onwards and upwards. Lorene, thank you for sharing that. And give those girls a big old smooch from Vertus and I. They're cute. I love kids. Come on, guys. Did it make a difference? Did it make a difference? Can E be a P? Can economic motivations be principled? You bet they can. You bet they can. Jerem threw this slide up yesterday. $115 million in commissions paid since the inception of this company. Do you realize how many companies don't even generate revenue of $115 million in 6 years? To say we've generated that much in revenue, we've generated that much in revenue to you. How many piggy banks are being filled up? How many moms are leaving 3 a.m. Home Depot jobs? How many pensioners are replacing stuff they lost in the downturn of 08 and 09? How many people are taking care of parents or elderly folks that otherwise they couldn't take care of? And they're doing it with dignity and with some sense that, yeah, I've got a check coming on Friday and I'm okay. When Jerem shows this slide yesterday, average paid Director 300 can make a car payment. 700 can afford the average home payment. A paid bronze can help a son or daughter get all the way through school. These are not small numbers, by the way. Platinums equal attorney incomes. Average paid diamond is a surgeon, and 4x that at the triple diamond level. These are real numbers. This is real impact. Okay, next question. When does the moment of delta occur? When does the change occur? What do you think? When does the life-changing product set, the life-changing culture, and this life-changing financial and business opportunity really take its delta moment? To me, it's at the moment of enrollment. Some might say it's when you open your mouth. I can take that, but I will tell you this, nothing happens until the moment of enrollment. And when that enrollment occurs, when you actually have somebody that signs up, something very special is happening, and I want you to watch this page. The delta point drops into its place on the life graph of the person you're dealing with. They are standing at an inflection point. And you're enrolling them into this game is literally creating the life-changing potential at the product, culture, and financial level that we have just seen demonstrated. You enrolling another person is literally creating the delta, the difference, or the change. I hope you see that as a core responsibility of everyone in this room. You cannot push that away. If you have been favored or blessed by this opportunity, product, or culture, then we all must own the responsibility to enroll. That is where it happens. I would like to suggest to you the reason I titled this is because that difference needs to be doubled in this company. And I use the word double as a reference point, not a literal point. We need to double up. There's more moms out there working at 3 a.m. There's 10 million single moms in America alone. 15% of the single moms in Australia, right? Of the whole community, 15% are Loreens. The average median income of a single mother in the United States is $26,000 a year. That means to suggest if I can add $500 a month or $6,000 a year to their income, that's a 20% lift in the intake into that home. We need to double the difference that we're making in the world. So I'm adding a word to this. I'm adding the notion of a challenge. Are you up for a challenge from the founder of this company? From one of them? Here's my challenge. I want to challenge everyone in this room to double the difference that you're making in the world by enrolling 2 or more people a month. Now, does that seem big to you? Does that seem frightening to you? No, right? Yesterday, Karen introduced a fantastic word, psychoduological. I'm adding to psychoduological, my dear friend Karen, it's psycho-emoto-duological. Okay? What does that mean? It means psychologically, if you just read the stories that I read, if you just saw the picture of a home being changed to another, if you just saw the piggy banks and thought, how many are out there? If you understand that in America alone, the average retirement savings at 65 years old is less than $100,000. Fact is, it's $60,000 that people have saved for retirement. And then you contrast that with someone replacing their income in 3, 4, 2 years. Should not we step back and say to myself, I got something psycho-emoto-duological here. And I got to find 2 people every month that want this, that can sense this. We create an environment where you can trust the executive team, where we're going to teach principles. They're going to come away going, I feel good here. None of us are back there wringing our hands, kind of talking about you people like objects. We care immensely for you, and you cannot fake that. You feel it in the crowd when you see a Charles Funky on the stage saying thank you to the employee base, do you not? That's real core values. So what keeps you and I from something so psycho-emotionally, logically doable? What keeps us from that? Most of the time, it's just us. Most of the time, it's just making the decision or taking the challenge. Now, what if you did this? And may I say, particularly for the Trishes in the room, I am not talking about putting people into this game and not mentoring. You have the responsibility to simply invite them to the same challenge, the psycho-emoto-duological. That's a tricky one. Say that 10 times. You have the responsibility to see to it that these people have the same challenge. And is that doable for them? Conviction sells, folks. If you believe and you get them to believe because they should and can, then this can happen. Let's talk about what this could look like. Go back to this slide. Any guesses on the bronze executive rank average number of personal enrollments in this company? So if I took all of the bronze executives in this company and I racked up the personally sponsored enrollments of them, any guesses on the number? The number is 23.9, which happens to be 1 year of my Double the Difference challenge. If you just simply said, if you're here today trying to reboot your engines around ASEA, if you're here today for the first time, I've had several come up and say, I joined 2 weeks ago and I'm here. Okay, what if you're here today and not doing what you hoped to do? What if you're here today and you wanted to be on the stage last night? Let me tell you something. I used to come to meetings like these, and I would sit in the crowd, and I would have the most insane amalgam of emotions and chemistry going on inside of me saying, I'm doing that. I'm gonna walk that stage. I'm gonna be that guy someday. Happened to be in the financial services industry, but the feelings were the same. How many of you last night had a feeling, a genuine, sincere conversation with yourself saying, that's me? Show me. Did you? Yeah, right? Some of you that are cynics in the room like, nah, I don't need the fanfare. I don't need this. I'm telling you, every person in this room at one point last night said, you know what? I want that. I want that. Okay, well, just 2 a month and teaching them to find 2 a month. And just remember, I'm saying 2 or more, so if you're already kicking that number, keep going. I'm not giving a hall pass for you to go from 6 down to 2. But I am saying the math, and let me suggest to you, as an economics major and a financial guy for 17 years, let me help you understand something called the law of large numbers. The law of large numbers says that if I've got a real big data set and I'm backing off averages and numbers out of it, the more numbers I have in it, the better and more meaningful the data is coming out from it. Those are big numbers. Those are coming from huge pools. And to be fair, the bronze number can go down from the 2,000, but the average, dead center, is $2,000 a month and 24 personal enrollments. Now, if you start combing the local middle school and throwing people on and expect to be at these numbers, it's not going to happen, right? You've got to go out and find people that genuinely want to play, that genuinely can see the vision of what they want, and that get this conviction. But just that number alone for me is very intriguing. Hey, what about platinum? This is an interesting one. Any guesses on platinum? Average number of enrollments for a platinum. Law of large numbers. These are big numbers. Any guesses? How many? I heard 60. Here's the number. This is getting really symmetrical, isn't it? 48 enrolled and approximately $9,000 a month. It ranges, by the way, up to $15,000 a month to as low as 4 or 5 at the platinum level. Okay, why are these two numbers important? I wanted to pull out the fact. What if today you made a commitment to yourself to take this double the difference challenge and say, it's on. June the 1st, I'm on. And I'm gonna enroll, or May, by the way, or mid-May, I'm gonna enroll 2 a month, every month for the next 12 months. I'm going to work with and mentor those folks to do the same. That's a key statement. And I'm going to give them the same challenge with the same support. I have a whole new enrollment platform, don't I? I have a whole new thing to talk about that has never been on our platform before, and it's good. I have a Redox sub product that cannot be touched. I have Renew 28 that cannot be touched. We have stuff that no one else has, and I'm going to go find 2 a month. What this says to you is if you do that, and you do, I have a saying that I've said for years, honest, intelligent effort is always rewarded. Has to be honest, and it has to be intelligent, which means don't run out there and put 24 on that don't want to do it, and that have no interest in doing it, and then come back to me in a year and say, this didn't work out for me. You have to focus on getting the right people in the game. But if you said, I'm going to find the best 2 I can or more every month, the numbers would suggest that in 12 months, you'd have 24 enrolled and be minimum $2,000 a month on the average. If I went to platinum 2 years out, what if I said for the next 24 months, I have one objective? Psycho, emoto, duological objective. It can be done. It's just 2 a month, every month. When Pepper Black stood up here and said with such energy and commitment, you can't treat this like a hobby and expect it to pay you like a business. Treat it like a business. This is the lowest barrier to entry opportunity. It's called a return on invested capital. This takes very low invested capital for you to have a kind of return that these folks on the stage last night are getting. Did you know that the top 10 income earners in this company, did you hear the number last year? The aggregate number that they earned? It was north of $7 million last night. And I'm going to promise you, those are real dollars. They are real dollars. Okay. I would like to suggest that if you enroll 2 or more for a month, that we're going to do something back for you. And that is, if you're willing to take this challenge, and I'm going to do something that everyone tells me I shouldn't do, I'm going to give you my email address at ASEA. My email address at ASEA is tnorton@asea.net. And if you're going to take this challenge, then send me an email. You don't have to tell me your life story, because I probably can't read them all. But if you sent me an email that said, I'm in, I'll take your challenge, I'll double the diff, I want it, let's go. And if you do that from June through May of next year, here's my commitment to you. My father ran strategy in a $36 billion company. You think he knows how to coach a business person? And for the last 15 years, I've been learning from him, and I've been coaching it as well. And if you want to know one of my true passions in life, pick your passion. Riding a horse, swimming. One of my passions is teaching and coaching this process. It's called Strategic Link. And people have paid and do pay a very large penny just to have access to these concepts and steps. And the fact is, this process is why ASEA even got started. The prior company that owned the IP needed help, and my dad and I went in to introduce this process to them. For anyone in this room that enrolls 2 a month and does so from June of this year through May of next year, I'll be doing monthly coaching Zoom calls to teach you the Strategic Link process. Now, what does that really mean, right? You might be here saying, I don't know what that means. Let me tell you what it means. Strategic Link has 12 steps to it. You can take 50 pictures of this page. It's going to take a lot more than to understand it. It's a tricky set of steps that help you to get strategic clarity. But it culminates with something as simple as this: a one-page strategic orientation with a set of strategies that's linked color-coded wise to a series of daily and weekly and monthly activities that you're going to execute. It is not for the faint of heart. It's for people who are very serious about growing their business and moving it forward. Now, I will foreshadow to our senior leadership of the field that we aim to do more than just Zoom calls and help you with this. But for those of you, I don't care if you're what level you are, what rank you are, if you'll commit to take the Double the Difference challenge over the next 12 months, my commitment back to you is every month I will personally live coach you on how to think more strategically, and it will affect your core businesses of other worlds, it'll affect your employment of other worlds, and it will definitely affect your ASEA business. And I'll do it every month. I'll have it designed out for you, and it'll be a full program for you for the next 12 months. Thank you. I will tell you that an enormous percentage of my life curve from a professional standpoint, if it was just a professional curve, I can tie back to this process. The way I think, the way I communicate, and whatever impact or influence I have as an advisor to other businesses, this is it. Real quickly, let me just share one thing. I taught this process to a good friend in Phoenix, Arizona, 15 years ago. He came to me and said, we were on a nonprofit board together that protected battered women and children. It was called the Never Again Foundation. And we went after anybody that messed with women and children. And we went after them not criminally, because that was already taken care of. We went after them civilly, which no attorneys do because there's no money there. And we actually got the largest award in the state of Arizona against a domestic abuser ever issued in that little organization. And my dad had just taught me this process. And this particular individual was a JD MBA on the board with me. He came to me, he said, Tyler, I'm going to start a small new business, and I want to use this Strategic Link process to do it. He goes, can I take all the little 3M note post-it boards off the wall and use this as we build our business? There were 3 employees. That business is Infusionsoft. Infusionsoft is pre-IPO valued at $800 million with 600 employees. And Clayton Mask just texted me yesterday. He's the CEO of that company. I'm one of 3 personal advisors to him, and the reason he asks for my advice is that process. Now, is there value in me teaching you and coaching you that process? Yes, if you're willing to take the double the difference challenge, if you're willing to get in the game and say, I'm in. If you get behind in June, I don't care. If you put 4 on in July, you're back on track. The goal is to make a run at 12 straight months and enroll 24 people, and honest, intelligent effort is always rewarded. You will see good things happen. Will you have setbacks? Yes. Will you have some people that don't do what you think? Yes, that's called life. But you keep moving forward, and you make a personal, psycho-emoto, illogical, not illogical, do-illogical decision that I'm in this game, I'm playing all year long. I'm not moving. I had a guy I worked with who told me, in the financial services business, 1 out of 10 will survive. I had a wonderful guy I worked with, and he came to me, he said, I went home to my wife, and I said, mark it, 5 years. I'm not going anywhere for 5 years. And on the 5th year anniversary, I'm going to sit down and say, did this work? I don't think we make the kind of deep internal decisions and commitments that we need to make to have the kind of outcomes we're so quickly willing to declare. You have to make the deep internal commitment. I'm not showing you yachts, and I never will. I'm not showing you mansions, I never will. Do you know the people that can actually earn that are in this for decades? And I'm sorry, there are people in this room that are making very good money in short order, but I want to be real for those of you that are looking to stop working at Home Depot at 3 in the morning. Make a personal commitment for 12 and 24 months. Put blinders on. Don't listen to any of the voices telling you to get off the train. Stay on the train. Get engaged on phone calls, get engaged in every possible way. Take Karen's advice on all the psychoduological stuff. Do 3 ways. Squeeze the orange of your upline to make juice. I would be making juice. If Trish Winkler, Denny Robinson, Chuck and Tammy Foster, I can go through all my people right here in front, and I say, if you were my upline, I would be drinking juice, and you would be the orange. I'd be squeezing you every day. I need you on the phone. I need you to help me with this, because smart people leverage the resources. That's strategy, that's strategic link. And you get really clear on those resources and you make juice. Now, let's talk about this concept of the challenge. Will you take the double the difference challenge? Tomorrow morning, I'll give you till Monday. I would like in my inbox, tnorton@asea.net, I would like to hear from you if you're going to take this challenge, because I'll tell you this right now, mark my words. I'm guessing we're 1,500 to 1,800 people, somewhere in that range in here. It'll be very interesting to see how many inbox emails I get in the next 48 hours. Because what I've learned is people leave events like these on this psycho-emoto-duological high, right? And they're feeling good. But you're going to get on a plane and all the pressures, and you're going to go back by yourself, and you're going to try to explain to a family member who wasn't at the event how you felt, and they're going to be dismissing you. And you're going to call your sister, who you keep bugging to buy ASEA and to use the product, and think somehow that her eye color is going to change because you came to this event. It's not going to change. And within 48 hours, you're going to go, I don't know, this doesn't feel psycho-emoto anything, right? This feels psycho, right? And you're going to start thinking, I don't know if I can do it. So here's the deal. Some of you have heard me talk about decisions, the power of decisions. You know I like words. Karen was right. You can't come to an ASEA convention without a Webster dictionary or an etymological derivative of a word. Here is the word. Decide. Decide. What does it mean? Decide comes from the same word, as homicide. What in the world? It means you've got to kill something to decide. Decision comes from the same word as incision. You got to cut something out of your world if you're going to decide. If something deep inside of your heart is seeing these stories and wants those outcomes for your family and for your life, then decide. How will you declare, which is another part of a training I believe in, how will you declare your decision? You will type tnorton@asea.net. And you will put in the subject line, double the difference challenge, and you will make one line to me that says, I am in. Now, why is that important for you and not for me? Because you need to declare your intentions. You have to have clear intentions and then give them attention. They've got to be yours. And so many people never get on the track of their true potential. The life curve never really takes its true potential course because they never decide. They just never make the conscious decision that says, I am going to do this. Every person honored and respected on this stage appropriately last night has deep, abiding decisions and convictions about what they want, what they're willing to cut, what they're willing to kill out of their lives to get it. So, will you take the double the difference challenge for sure? Okay, do it. Good. That's right. How about right now? What do you mean? All right, fire it up. You already sent it over? You're all scaring me. Sorry, Susan. She's going to be fishing through my inboxes. Okay. I'd like you to tell me who I am. I'm almost done. Some of you that know who I am are not allowed to answer this question. Master of human destinies am I. Fame, love, and fortune on my footsteps wait. Cities and fields I walk. I penetrate deserts and seas remote. And passing by hovel and mart and palace, soon or late, I knock unbidden once at every gate. If sleeping, wake. If feasting, rise. Before I leave, it is the hour of fate. And those who follow me reach every state that mortals desire and conquer every foe save death. But those who doubt, or those who hesitate, condemned to failure, penury, and woe, seek me in vain and uselessly implore. I answer not, and I return no more. Who am I? I am opportunity. I am the master of human destinies. Fame, love, and fortune on the footsteps of opportunity wait. Cities and fields it walks, whether it's rural or urban. It penetrates deserts and seas far away, and it passes by a hovel of poverty, a mart of commerce, or a palace of royalty. And sooner or late, it knocks on the door and says, I'm here and you didn't ask for me. Now listen carefully. If sleeping, wake. If feasting, rise before I turn away, before I go. This is the hour of fate. And if you follow me, you will reach every state you desire. I've seen that. I've seen that. But those who doubt or hesitate, condemned to failure, penury, and woe, will then turn around when it's over and seek me in vain and uselessly say, come back, please. But in this case, opportunity does not return and does not answer again. Effective people are not problem-minded, they're opportunity-minded. The root of the word opportunity is port, meaning the entryway by water into a city or place of business. In earlier days, when the tide and winds were right and the port was opened, it allowed entry to do commerce, to visit or to invade and even conquer. but only those who recognize the opening could take advantage of the open port or opportunity. My dear friends, you are standing on your own life curve. You are at an inflection point. You have the opportunity to be an inflection point in the lives of others. You have an opportunity to be at your own inflection point. This event, this meeting, this company can literally be that inflection point for you. It can be the delta right now. And every day that you look at our brand, every day that you look at our company's name, I want you to see this. I want you to see in the A that delta symbol. I want you to realize that there is a delta at the front of our name and there is a delta at the back of our name. Every time you see it, I want you to remember the change and the difference that this product, this opportunity, and this culture can have. Let's double the difference. Are you with me? Thank you very much.